If I walked up to you on the street right now, held out my hand and asked you to give me $100 from your wallet, you would rightfully refuse. You would probably look at me like I was completely out of my mind. You instinctively protect your money. You lock your doors at night, you carefully check your bank statements, and you guard your physical assets with immense caution. But every single day, ordinary, hardworking people leave the vault to their most valuable asset completely wide open. They allow bosses, social media algorithms, and minor manufactured emergencies to steal 3, 4, or 5 hours of their day without a second thought. They hand over their time to anyone who asks for it. And they usually do not realize the devastating compounding cost of this theft until decades have passed. There is one absolute unavoidable law of the universe that applies to every single person on this earth, regardless of how much money they have sitting in a brokerage account. We all get exactly 24 hours today. I do not get a single minute more than you do. You cannot buy more of it, you cannot borrow it from a bank, and you cannot save today's unused hours in a safe deposit box to spend them tomorrow. Time is the ultimate non-renewable capital. Yet it is endlessly fascinating to watch how human beings behave. We will negotiate fiercely over a 3% raise at our jobs, or spend an hour driving across town to save $20 on a household purchase. But we will casually throw away entire evenings staring at a glowing rectangle, consuming noise that adds absolutely zero value to our lives. We treat paper money as if it is sacred, and we treat our finite, irreplaceable time as if it is infinite. If you want to understand why so many people feel completely trapped by their financial circumstances, overwhelmed by stress, and entirely disconnected from the life they actually wanted to build, you have to look closely at this exact paradox. People very rarely ruin their lives or destroy their potential in one giant dramatic explosion. You do not wake up on a Tuesday morning and make one colossal mistake that permanently wipes out your future. Instead, you lose your life quietly. You lose it day by day, hour by hour, in the repeated, almost unnoticeable surrender of your daily routine. It is a slow, steady leak in the hull of your ship. I call this the trap of the drift. When you do not take active, deliberate ownership of your 24 hours, you naturally fall into a state of permanent reaction. You wake up and immediately the outside world dictates your mood, your priorities, and your focus. You respond to the urgent emails, you put out the minor fires at the office, you react to the breaking news alerts, and you navigate the chaotic traffic. By the time the sun goes down, you are physically exhausted and mentally depleted. You feel incredibly busy, but when you look back at the day, you realize you did not take a single meaningful step forward. You survived the day, but you did not steer it. You are simply drifting in the current of other people's demands. This state of permanent drift has massive, tangible consequences for your financial security and your peace of mind. Your earning power, your ability to solve complex problems, and your capacity to build wealth are directly tied to how you allocate your daily time capital. If your focus is constantly fractured, you cannot compound a new skill. If your energy is entirely drained by reactive tasks, you cannot plot a strategic career move. The chronic money pressure that so many working families feel is deeply connected to this loss of daily control. When you surrender your time, you surrender your autonomy. You become completely dependent on your next paycheck, simply because you have never carved out the protected hours required to build an alternative path. The modern internet will tell you that the solution to this problem is sheer punishing effort. There is an entire industry of productivity gurus and motivational speakers who sell a very specific, toxic brand of hustle theater. They scream at you through your screen, telling you that if you want to master your life, you need to wake up at 3 in the morning, take an ice bath, skip meals, and grind on a side business until you collapse. They promote the idea that sleep is for the weak, and that any hour not spent monetizing your existence is a wasted hour. They frame time management as a brutal endurance sport where the person who suffers the most wins. Well, let me be perfectly clear about this. That approach is mathematically flawed, biologically dangerous, and a guaranteed recipe for misery. The people who truly build lasting wealth and enduring emotional stability do not operate with that kind of frantic, desperate intensity. They do not treat their bodies like machines to be run into the ground. They understand that you cannot punish your way to a better life. Exhaustion is not a badge of honor. It is a blaring alarm that you have completely lost control of your boundaries. True high performers do not do more things faster. They actually do fewer things, but they do them with absolute, quiet, unshakable intention. Mastering your 24 hours is not about becoming a hyper-efficient corporate robot. It is about taking a step back and reclaiming your humanity from an economy that wants to turn your attention into a commodity. It requires a fundamental shift in how you view the transitions of your day. It means understanding that the quiet moments of your morning are the psychological margin of safety for your mind. It means recognizing that deep, uninterrupted focus is the only true leverage an ordinary worker has to increase their value, and it requires the absolute conviction that your evening hours belong to you and the people you love, not to the lingering anxieties of your workplace. Today, we are going to completely deconstruct how the most grounded, successful individuals manage their daily time capital. We are going to strip away the exhausting cliches and the fake productivity hacks, and we are going to look at a highly practical, deeply humane framework. This is a daily protocol designed for the ordinary hardworking person who wants to lower their money pressure, increase their earning power, and ultimately point their life in a direction they actually choose. We will explore why the first hour of your day dictates your emotional baseline and why multitasking is a financial illusion that destroys your potential. We will draw a hard, critical line between genuinely recovering your energy and merely escaping reality on your couch. And we will see why fiercely protecting your sleep is one of the strongest forms of self-protection you have. Time is the only capital you are mathematically guaranteed to run out of. It is time to stop leaving the vault open. Let us begin by looking closely at the single greatest threat to your daily potential, the trap of the reactive workday. If you want to understand why so many hardworking people never manage to escape financial anxiety, you have to look closely at exactly what happens during the very first hour of their workday. Most people arrive at their job with good intentions. You sit down at your desk, set down your coffee, and you might even have a vague idea of a few important things you want to accomplish. But then you make a fatal, almost automatic mistake. You open your email inbox or you log into your company's internal chat system. In that exact fraction of a second, you completely surrender the steering wheel of your day. You have instantly shifted from offense to defense, and you have stepped directly into the trap of the reactive workday. The modern corporate environment is brilliantly engineered to keep you in a permanent state of reaction. From the moment your screen lights up, you are bombarded by a conveyor belt of other people's priorities. There is an urgent email from a client, a frantic direct message from a coworker who cannot find a file, and a sudden calendar invite for a mandatory meeting that starts in 10 minutes. You immediately start putting out these little fires. You answer the questions, you locate the missing files, and you rush into the conference room. You are moving incredibly fast, and you are expending a massive amount of cognitive energy. But if you look closely at what is actually happening, you will notice something deeply alarming. You are not executing your own plan. You are simply reacting to the immediate demands of your environment. You are acting as a human router for information, taking requests from one side and passing data to the other. And because the modern economy possesses an infinite number of these small, urgent demands, you can spend an entire 8-hour shift operating entirely in this defensive posture. You spend your whole day playing the role of a goalie. You are constantly blocking shots that are being fired at you, but you are never actually moving down the field to score a point for your own life. This creates a highly dangerous illusion. In the modern workplace, we have completely confused busyness with actual progress. When you clear out 50 unread emails and reply to 20 instant messages before lunch, your brain releases a small, satisfying hit of dopamine. You feel incredibly productive. You feel like you are working hard and earning your paycheck. The system rewards you for this behavior. Your manager praises you for being a team player, and your coworkers appreciate how quickly you respond to their crises. But being highly responsive is not the same thing as becoming more valuable. The economic marketplace does not pay a massive premium to people who can answer an email within 30 seconds. It does not hand out financial independence to employees who are simply excellent at attending useless meetings. The marketplace pays a premium for rare, specialized skills. It pays highly for the ability to solve complex problems, to think strategically, and to execute deep, uninterrupted work that actually moves the needle for a business. The tragic reality of the reactive workday is that it completely destroys your ability to do that high-value work. Every single time you pause a difficult task to check a notification or answer a quick question, you pay a massive cognitive tax. It takes the human brain an extraordinary amount of time to refocus after an interruption. If your attention is fractured every 10 minutes by a ping on your phone or a coworker stopping by your desk, you will never reach the level of deep focus required to compound a new skill. You are spending your days operating in the shallow waters of distraction, while all the true financial rewards are hidden out in the deep end. This constant state of reaction creates a deep humming anxiety that sits quietly in the background of your life. Human beings are not biologically designed to remain in a state of high alert responsiveness for 10 straight hours. When you are constantly anticipating the next urgent message or the next minor crisis, your nervous system never has a chance to settle. You feel a profound lack of control because you genuinely are out of control. Your daily schedule is at the absolute mercy of anyone who decides to send you a message. This is exactly why you can leave the office at 5 o'clock feeling physically exhausted and mentally drained, yet carry a hollow, frustrating feeling that you accomplished absolutely nothing of real substance. You gave your absolute best energy to the corporate machine. You put out a dozen tiny fires, but you moved 0 inches closer to your own financial freedom. You survived the shift, but you did not build any permanent architecture for your future. You just ran on a treadmill that someone else was controlling. When this pattern repeats itself day after day, month after month, the financial consequences become incredibly severe. A reactive worker is a stagnant worker because you are never carving out the quiet, focused time to upgrade your own human capital. Your earning power hits a permanent ceiling. You become highly efficient at the routine tasks of your current job, but you never develop the rare leverage required to demand a higher salary or to transition into a more lucrative career. You get stuck in the exact same wage bracket, slowly falling behind the rising cost of living, while silently wondering why your hard work is not translating into actual wealth. People who have successfully built lasting wealth and enduring careers approach their days with a fundamentally different mindset. They understand that the world will gladly spend your time for you if you do not spend it yourself. They recognize that if they leave the vault door open, the chaotic demands of the office will steal every single minute of their focus. They refuse to accept the premise that being a good employee means being permanently accessible to every random distraction. To escape the trap of the reactive workday, you have to make a definitive choice to step out of the current. You have to realize that true earning progress requires periods of absolute, unshakable control over your own attention. You cannot simply hope that today will be quieter than yesterday. You cannot wait for your boss to suddenly decide to give you fewer interruptions. The corporate environment will never voluntarily give you your time back. It is designed to extract it. You have to actively, intentionally take it back. This reclaiming of your time cannot start in the middle of a chaotic afternoon. By the time 2 o'clock rolls around, the momentum of the day has already been decided, and your cognitive battery is already halfway depleted. If you want to break the cycle of reaction, you have to build a protective wall around the very beginning of your day. You need to establish a physical and psychological buffer that sets the terms of engagement before the world is allowed to speak to you. To do that, we have to look closely at the architecture of the morning and how ordinary people can build a critical margin of safety before the workday even begins. In the world of investing and capital allocation, there is one foundational concept that serves as the absolute bedrock of long-term survival. It is an idea so critical that without it, financial ruin is mathematically inevitable over a long enough timeline. That concept is called the margin of safety. When structural engineers build a bridge that needs to carry 10,000 tons of daily traffic, they do not design the steel cables to hold exactly 10,000 tons. They design the bridge to hold 40 or 50,000 tons. They build in a massive invisible buffer so that when an unexpected storm hits or a completely unpredictable load crosses the span, the structure does not collapse into the river. They engineer the bridge to survive the worst-case scenario without sustaining any permanent damage. The exact same principle must be applied to your psychological health and your daily schedule. If you want to survive the unpredictable, highly stressful demands of the modern workplace, you must build a margin of safety for your own mind. The problem is that the vast majority of ordinary, hardworking people wake up every single morning with an absolute margin of zero. They set their alarms for the latest possible minute. They calculate the exact amount of time it takes to shower, get dressed, and rush out the door. The moment their eyes open, they are already running late. They are immediately thrown into a chaotic, high-stress scramble, desperately trying to find their car keys, skipping a proper breakfast, and sitting in traffic while their cortisol levels skyrocket. When you start your day this way, you are stepping onto a bridge that is already carrying its maximum weight limit. The slightest disruption, a spilled cup of coffee, a minor delay on the highway, or an unexpected email from your boss is enough to make the entire structure of your day collapse into frustration. You arrive at your desk completely out of breath, already playing on the defensive and carrying a heavy load of anxiety before the workday has even officially begun. Now, if you spend any time on the internet seeking advice on how to fix this, you will immediately run into a very loud, highly profitable industry of productivity gurus. They will tell you that the secret to success is to turn yourself into a machine. They will insist that you must wake up at 4 in the morning, jump into a freezing ice bath, run 5 miles in the dark, and complete a 20-step optimization routine before the sun comes up. They frame the morning as a brutal, punishing boot camp where you must conquer your weakness through sheer physical exhaustion. I want you to completely ignore that toxic advice. That kind of extreme theatrical routine is not sustainable for an ordinary working adult who has a family, a demanding job, and a biological need for rest. It is a recipe for severe burnout, and it completely misses the point of why the morning is actually valuable. The goal of waking up a little earlier is not to cram more exhausting work into your 24 hours. The goal is to carve out a quiet, highly protected psychological buffer. You are not trying to win an endurance sport. You are simply trying to build a margin of safety for your mind. To achieve this, I suggest something infinitely more humane, gentle, and practical. You simply need to wake up 30 to 45 minutes before the world is allowed to make a single demand on your time. That is the entire secret. You do not need to wake up at 4 in the morning. If you normally wake up at 7 in a panic, you simply adjust your alarm to 6:15. You are giving yourself the ultimate luxury in the modern world, the gift of unhurried time. You are creating a quiet space where you set the terms of engagement before the corporate machine wakes up and begins dictating your actions. However, to make this 30 to 45-minute window actually work, there is one absolute non-negotiable rule you must follow. You cannot look at a digital screen. When you reach for your smartphone while you are still lying in bed, you are essentially inviting hundreds of strangers into your bedroom to yell their demands at you before you have even put your feet on the floor. You are instantly handing the steering wheel of your day over to a breaking news alert, a social media algorithm, or a stressful corporate email. You must leave the phone on its charger in another room. The digital world can wait 45 minutes. The economy will not collapse because you delayed checking your inbox. Instead, you use this protected window to engage in slow, grounding, low dopamine activities. You walk into a quiet kitchen and brew a cup of coffee. You sit in a comfortable chair and watch the sun come up. You read a few pages of a physical book, something timeless, like philosophy, history, or a biography, rather than the frantic temporary noise of the internet. You allow your brain to boot up naturally, without the artificial stimulation of flashing notifications and manufactured outrage. You experience the profound physical relief of simply existing in your own home without having to immediately produce value for an employer. During this quiet time, you can also perform one incredibly simple act of planning. You ask yourself a single question: what is the one most important thing I need to accomplish today? You do not write a massive, overwhelming checklist of 20 chores. You identify the one task that will actually move the needle for your career, your finances, or your family. By setting this single intention in the quiet of the morning, you give your day a definitive direction. You decide what matters, rather than letting your inbox decide for you. This small, protected window of time fundamentally alters your emotional baseline for the rest of the day. When you build a margin of safety in the morning, you walk into the office with a completely different posture. You are no longer stepping onto the corporate battlefield already wounded and out of breath. You possess a quiet, unshakable calm. When a sudden crisis occurs at work or a coworker makes an unreasonable demand, you do not react with panic or anger. Because your nervous system is completely settled, you are able to respond with patience and clear, rational judgment. This emotional stability has a direct, massive impact on your financial trajectory. People who are chronically rushed and anxious make terrible decisions. They accept bad deals because they lack the patience to negotiate. They snap at their managers and damage their professional reputations. They lack the cognitive endurance to stick to a long-term plan. Conversely, a calm, grounded mind is the ultimate financial asset. When you own your morning, you protect your judgment, and your judgment is what ultimately determines your earning power. But having a calm mind and a clear intention is only the first step in mastering your 24 hours. A protected morning gives you the direction, but it does not do the actual work. Once you enter the office and the demands of the day begin crashing over you, you have to know how to execute that intention without getting swept away by the noise. You have to learn how to actively defend your attention in an economy that is constantly trying to steal it. To understand how ordinary people can build rare, highly compensated skills in a world of endless distraction, we must look closely at the architecture of the workday and the immense financial power of deep, uninterrupted focus. The economic marketplace is incredibly rational when it comes to compensation. It does not pay you a massive premium simply because you are exhausted at the end of the day. It does not hand out financial independence or promotions just because you answered 500 emails this week. It pays you for one thing: your ability to provide rare, specialized value. And the ability to provide that high-level value is entirely dependent on your capacity for deep, uninterrupted focus. If you want to increase your earning power, you have to transition from doing easily replaceable tasks to solving complex, expensive problems. But here is the catch. You cannot solve a complex problem if your attention is fractured every 6 minutes. You cannot learn a highly valuable new skill like mastering a piece of data analysis software or writing a strategic proposal while you are simultaneously trying to monitor a company group chat. The human brain simply does not work that way. The modern corporate environment sells us a massive, highly destructive lie. It tells us that multitasking is a vital professional skill. We are led to believe that the ideal employee is someone who can sit at their desk with 20 different browser tabs open, a spreadsheet on one monitor, an email inbox constantly refreshing on the other, all while happily answering a tap on the shoulder from a coworker. We treat this chaotic juggling act as a badge of honor. But multitasking is a biological and financial illusion. You are not actually doing 3 things at once. You are rapidly switching your attention back and forth between different targets. And every single time you do that, you pay a massive invisible penalty that psychologists call a context switching tax. When you are trying to concentrate on a difficult task and your phone pings with a minor update, your brain is violently yanked out of its deep processing state, even if you only glance at the notification for 3 seconds and immediately return to your work. The damage is already done. It takes the human brain an extraordinary amount of time, sometimes 15 to 20 minutes, to fully re-engage with a complex problem after an interruption. If you allow yourself to be interrupted 4 times in a single hour, you have effectively spent the entire hour operating at a shallow, compromised level of intelligence. You are doing the cognitive equivalent of driving a car with the emergency brake pulled all the way up. This constant state of context switching is precisely why so many hardworking people feel permanently stuck in their careers. When you spend your entire day reacting to pings, answering quick questions, and managing the superficial noise of the office, you never reach the depths of concentration required to actually improve at your craft. Your skills stagnate. You become highly efficient at the administrative busy work of your current job, but you never develop the rare leverage required to demand a higher salary or to transition to a better opportunity. You become an easily replaceable human router. For the ordinary working person, this is a tragedy because deep focus is one of the only true forms of leverage you actually control. You might not have $1 million of investment capital to deploy, and you might not have a team of 50 employees working underneath you, but you do have your attention. If you can train yourself to seriously protect that attention, you immediately separate yourself from 99% of the modern workforce. When I look at people who produce extraordinarily valuable work, they do not operate in a state of continuous low-grade distraction. They do not work intensely for 14 hours a day. Instead, they work in short, highly protected blocks of absolute, unbroken focus. They understand that 90 minutes of pure, uninterrupted concentration is infinitely more productive than an entire 8-hour shift of fragmented, reactive busy work. They build thick defensive walls around their attention when it matters most. To harness this power, you must adopt a philosophy of deliberate isolation for specific parts of your day. You have to realize that it is entirely acceptable to be temporarily unreachable. If you need to write a difficult report or analyze a complicated set of numbers, you must close your email program entirely. You must turn off the notifications on your company messaging app. You put your smartphone in a drawer. You put on noise-canceling headphones to signal to your coworkers that you are not available for casual conversation. You take a single specific task and you dedicate your entire cognitive capacity to it for one unbroken block of time. It might feel incredibly uncomfortable at first. Your brain has been conditioned to crave the constant dopamine hits of digital distraction. You will feel a sudden anxious urge to just quickly check your inbox. You will worry that you are missing something urgent. You have to fight that urge. You have to sit in the discomfort and force your mind to stay on the single task in front of you. When you consistently practice this kind of deep focus, something remarkable happens to your earning power. Your output quality dramatically increases. You start solving the problems that your distracted coworkers simply cannot figure out. You begin to compound your skills at an accelerated rate. You transition from someone who just moves papers around to someone who creates undeniable value. And in the capitalist system, undeniable value is eventually rewarded with financial autonomy. You stop begging for a raise and you start commanding your worth. But we must be realistic about human biology. The brain is an energy-intensive organ. You cannot maintain this level of intense, laser-like focus for 8 straight hours. It is physically impossible. Even the most successful, highly trained individuals can only manage perhaps 3 or 4 hours of true deep work a day. By the time the late afternoon rolls around, your cognitive battery will be flashing red. Your willpower will be depleted, and your ability to concentrate will naturally begin to fade. This natural depletion brings us to the most critical juncture of your entire 24 hours. When you finally log off for the day and walk through your front door, you are deeply fatigued. How you choose to handle that fatigue will determine whether you wake up tomorrow ready to focus again, or whether you slowly descend into chronic, suffocating burnout. To protect the machine that generates your wealth, we have to look closely at the evening transition and the profound difference between genuinely recovering your energy and merely numbing your mind. When you finally step through your front door at the end of a long workday, you experience a very specific, universally understood biological reality. Your cognitive battery is no longer just running low, it is entirely depleted. You have spent the last 8 or 10 hours giving the absolute sharpest, most focused, and most polite parts of yourself to your employer, your clients, and the chaotic traffic of your commute. By the time 6 o'clock rolls around, your mind is not asking you for a gentle break. It is demanding relief right now. Because we are so incredibly tired at this exact moment, it is very easy to view the remaining hours of the evening as simply the leftover scraps of the day. We treat this time as an unstructured void, a waiting room we have to sit in until the alarm clock brutally goes off again the next morning. The natural default response for millions of hardworking people is to use this time purely to numb the brain. You collapse onto the couch, you pull out your smartphone, and you begin endlessly scrolling through social media. Or perhaps you turn on a television show you do not even really care about, passively watching the bright colors flash across the screen for 3 solid hours. I want to be very clear. You do not do this because you are lazy, and you do not do this because you lack ambition. You do this because you are a human being, and your nervous system is desperately crying out for an escape from the relentless high-pressure demands of the modern economy. Numbing is a highly effective, deeply understandable survival mechanism. It temporarily silences the lingering anxiety of the office. It drowns out the voice of your demanding manager and the mental chatter about your unpaid bills. But if you want to master your 24 hours, you must recognize a devastating biological trap. We have culturally confused the concept of numbing with the concept of recovery. We use the two words interchangeably, but they are entirely different states. Numbing simply hits the pause button on your stress. While you are staring at a screen, consuming rapid-fire digital content, your nervous system is still highly stimulated. Your eyes are absorbing artificial light, and your brain is still processing thousands of disjointed images and opinions. You might feel disconnected from your job, but your body is not actually resting. When you use your evening purely to anesthetize yourself, you do not repair the cognitive damage of the day. The moment you finally turn off the screen and drag yourself into bed, that exact same stress is waiting for you. This is why you can sit on a couch for 4 hours, relaxing in quotes, and still wake up the next morning feeling like you are already behind, trapped in a heavy fog of exhaustion. You did not recover your energy, you simply froze your deficit in place. This habit of passive numbing leads directly to one of the most tragic consequences of the modern working life: emotional spillover. Because our corporate systems are so efficient at extracting our premium cognitive energy, we end up bringing our irritable, distracted leftovers home to the people we supposedly love the most. You sit in the living room with your spouse or your children, physically occupying space, but psychologically, you are thousands of miles away. You are lost in a digital void, or you are silently arguing with a coworker from 3 hours ago. When you consistently offer your family this distracted, exhausted version of yourself, you are quietly destroying the foundation of your own home. You send a silent message that the infinite noise of the outside world takes precedence over the quiet intimacy of your own living room. Over time, this breeds a profound sense of isolation. The conversations become purely logistical, focused only on who is paying which bill or picking up the groceries. The deep emotional anchor of the relationship slowly rots away. You might wonder why a discussion about earning power, wealth, and life trajectory is focusing so heavily on evening family dynamics. It is because you cannot separate the stability of your personal life from your professional success. A chaotic, emotionally distant home life is one of the greatest invisible destroyers of human potential. If your home is a place of quiet tension, it constantly drains your remaining energy. You carry that invisible weight back into the office the next morning. You cannot think strategically, you cannot focus deeply, and you cannot compound a new skill when your personal sanctuary feels like a house of cards. High performers understand that defending their peace at home is the ultimate strategy for protecting their earning power. To do this, they create a hard, deliberate transition between the workday and the evening. They build a moat around their personal time. When you come home, you must create a physical ritual that signals to your nervous system that the corporate threats have officially passed. You take off your work clothes, You take your smartphone, put it on a charger in a completely different room, and you walk away from it for at least an hour. You leave the laptop inside your bag. Once you have disconnected the digital leash, you engage in actual active recovery. True recovery often looks incredibly boring to the modern overstimulated brain. It lacks the rapid dopamine hits of a viral video. Recovery is the simple tactile act of cooking a meal without a loud podcast blaring in the background. It is sitting on the floor and giving your child 20 minutes of pure, unbroken eye contact level attention. It is having a quiet conversation with your partner about their day. It is taking a walk outside, simply moving your body through physical space to flush the accumulated cortisol out of your bloodstream. These low dopamine activities do something infinitely more valuable than entertainment. They actively lower your heart rate. They return your nervous system to its baseline. They allow your subconscious mind to quietly process the friction of the day and permanently file it away. When you shift your evening from passive numbing to active recovery, the results are profound. You stop bleeding your daily time capital into the digital void, and you start reinvesting it into the relationships that actually matter. There is another simple boundary that matters here, and most people underestimate it. Do not reopen the Workday after dinner unless something is truly urgent and real. If you keep checking the inbox at 8:30, replying to one more message at 9, and mentally rehearsing tomorrow's problems right before bed, your body never receives the signal that the danger has passed. Your job effectively starts renting space inside your home. Over time, that destroys the emotional meaning of being off the clock. A peaceful evening is not created by accident. It is created by a few repeated decisions that tell your mind, with consistency, that work has ended for the day. By defending your peace, you ensure that you do not wake up the next morning in a state of depletion. You wake up with a fully recharged cognitive battery, a stable emotional baseline, and the absolute clarity required to focus deeply on your work. The evening is not the bitter end of today, it is the critical soil in which tomorrow's success is planted. And as that evening winds down and your mind settles into a state of genuine calm, you enter the final, most vital phase of mastering your 24 hours. You must now prepare the ground for the ultimate biological asset, your sleep, and the quiet architecture of tomorrow. There is a deeply toxic narrative floating around the modern working world, and it has quietly destroyed the potential of countless hardworking people. It is the pervasive idea that sleep is a luxury, a sign of weakness, or a complete waste of perfectly good time. The internet is filled with voices insisting that if you truly want to get ahead, you need to sacrifice your rest. We are told to admire the person who only sleeps 4 hours a night, runs on sheer caffeine, and grinds away in the dark. We have culturally elevated exhaustion, treating sleep deprivation like a badge of honor to be worn proudly in the office. I want to completely shatter that illusion for you right now. As someone who has spent decades observing how human beings make decisions under pressure, I can tell you that sacrificing your sleep is the absolute worst financial and professional trade you can possibly make. Sleep is not the absence of productivity. It is the ultimate non-negotiable biological protector of your judgment, your restraint, and your emotional control. And in the game of long-term wealth building, your judgment is the most valuable asset you possess. When you consistently operate on a sleep deficit, you are not just making yourself physically tired. You are biologically compromising the exact cognitive machinery required to navigate a complex life. Your brain undergoes a measurable shift. The areas responsible for logic, long-term planning, and impulse control become severely impaired. Simultaneously, the emotional primitive centers of your brain go into absolute overdrive. You literally lose your capacity to delay gratification. A sleep-deprived mind behaves very much like a lightly intoxicated mind. It is reactive, defensive, and incredibly short-sighted. Think about the worst financial and professional decisions you have made in your life. The vast majority of terrible choices are not made because ordinary people lack intelligence. They are made because people are chronically exhausted. When you are running on empty, you snap at your manager and damage a working relationship that took years to build. You lose the patience required to sit down and focus on a difficult, high-value task. You make impulsive, expensive purchases simply because your tired brain is desperately demanding a quick hit of comforting dopamine. You cannot budget, you cannot negotiate effectively, and you certainly cannot master your 24 hours when you are operating in a state of permanent biological depletion. This brings us to a fundamental shift in how you must view your daily timeline. A successful, highly focused day does not actually begin when your alarm clock goes off in the morning. It begins the night before. If you want to wake up with absolute clarity and step into that quiet margin of safety we discussed earlier, you cannot leave your morning up to chance. You have to actively architect your tomorrow before your head ever hits the pillow. Imagine what happens when an ordinary person wakes up with absolutely zero preparation. The alarm goes off, and immediately their brain is forced to make a rapid series of trivial decisions. What shirt am I going to wear? Are those pants clean? Where did I leave my car keys? What am I going to pack for lunch? What is the first thing I need to do when I get to the office? This might seem like a perfectly normal morning routine, but it contains a hidden massive cost. Willpower and decision-making capacity are finite biological resources. You only have a certain amount of cognitive fuel available in your account every single day. Every time you make a choice, no matter how small or insignificant, you burn a tiny fraction of that daily fuel. This is called decision fatigue. If you burn through 20% of your daily decision-making capacity just trying to get dressed and find your keys, you are arriving at work already fundamentally compromised. You have wasted your premium cognitive energy on pure friction. To protect your morning and preserve your energy for the deep focus that actually increases your earning power, you must do a massive favor for your future self. You must spend just 10 or 15 minutes at the very end of your evening preparing the ground for tomorrow. This is the quiet architecture of a successful life. It is incredibly simple, and it requires zero special talent. Before you go to sleep, you remove all the micro decisions from your upcoming morning. You lay out the clothes you are going to wear. You pack your work bag and place it right next to the front door. You put your keys in your wallet in the exact same spot they go every single night. You prepare the coffee maker so that it only requires pushing a single button when you wake up. You systematically eliminate every possible source of friction that could disrupt your morning calm. Then you perform the most important act of the entire evening. You take a physical piece of paper and a pen and you write down the single most important task you need to accomplish tomorrow. You do not write a massive, overwhelming checklist of 20 random chores. You identify the one critical action that will actually move your life forward. If your schedule does not currently allow a perfect 8 hours every night, do not turn that into an excuse to abandon the principle. The point is not perfection. The point is respect. Respect for your biology. Respect for your future judgment. Respect for the fact that a person who sleeps 5 chaotic hours with a phone flashing beside the bed will make different decisions than a person who sleeps 7 quieter hours in a dark room with a settled mind. Even modest improvements in sleep quality and consistency can change the tone of your entire day. There is a profound psychological advantage to this simple act of writing it down. When you leave your tasks floating around in your head, your subconscious mind continuously tries to organize them while you sleep, creating a restless, anxious night. By defining your primary objective clearly on paper, you give your brain permission to completely let go. You sleep deeper, knowing the plan is already secured. When you wake up the next morning, you do not have to waste precious energy wondering where to start. You do not have to dig through a messy closet or frantically search for your keys. You wake up, you step into a frictionless environment, and you possess immediate, unshakable clarity about what needs to be done. You glide into your morning margin of safety, and you carry that quiet momentum straight into your workday. By fiercely protecting your 8 hours of sleep, you build an invisible shield around your judgment. By spending just 10 minutes architecting your morning the night before, you guarantee that your energy is spent on progress rather than panic. But as you begin to reclaim your mornings, protect your deep focus, and defend your sleep, you will inevitably face one final massive obstacle. The modern world will constantly try to pile more responsibilities onto your plate. To truly master your time, you have to learn how to protect your boundaries with consistency. And to do that, we must look at the ultimate philosophy of high performers, the quiet, absolute power of subtraction. If you look at the way the modern economy teaches time management, it looks very much like a frantic, unwinnable game of Tetris. We are told that the ultimate goal of adulthood is to figure out how to perfectly rotate and cram 50 different tasks into a rigid 24-hour box. We believe that if we can just learn to type faster, walk faster, and sleep a little bit less, we can squeeze 3 more blocks of productivity into our day. We treat our lives like a packing puzzle, trying to optimize every square inch of space so we can be a slightly more efficient machine for someone else's bottom line. We download apps to track our habits, we listen to podcasts at double speed, and we eat lunch at our desks while reading industry news. We assume that if we just push a little harder, we will eventually clear the board and finally find peace. But the board never clears. The blocks just keep falling faster and faster until the game is over. I want to offer you a completely different framework today. True mastery of your 24 hours is not an exercise in addition. It is a clear, disciplined exercise in subtraction. The ordinary working person is suffocated by the expectation of absolute availability. You are expected to say yes to every sudden meeting request, yes to every trivial favor asked by a coworker, yes to every digital notification that buzzes in your pocket, and yes to consuming endless streams of political outrage on the internet. But here is the brutal mathematical truth. Every single time you say yes to the noise, you are automatically saying no to your own life. You are saying no to the deep, uninterrupted focus that actually increases your earning power. You are saying no to the quiet patience required to sit on the floor and play a simple game with your children. You are saying no to the 8 hours of sleep that protects your physical health, repairs your body, and anchors your financial judgment. You cannot have it all, and trying to do it all is a guaranteed recipe for a mediocre, deeply exhausted existence. High performers understand that you cannot cram your way to a better life. The most successful, emotionally grounded individuals have the quiet courage to be a disappointment to trivial demands. They let the unimportant email sit in the inbox for another day without feeling a shred of guilt. They politely decline the hour-long meeting that has no clear agenda. They walk away from the television, they close the algorithmic feeds, and they refuse to participate in the frantic, manufactured urgency of the modern office. They do not do this because they are arrogant or out of touch. They do this because they deeply respect the cold, hard math of their own mortality. Time is entirely finite. If you want to say a profound, life-altering yes to your financial stability, your long-term health, and the people sitting in your living room, you must learn to steadily remove the things that simply do not matter. To make this philosophy a reality, you do not need to quit your job, move to a cabin in the woods, or become a billionaire. You simply need to implement the everyday protocol we have built throughout this journey. It is a quiet, reliable system designed to catch you before you fall back into the current of the drift. Step 1 is establishing your morning margin of safety. You wake up just 45 minutes before the world is allowed to demand your attention. You leave your phone resting on a charger in another room. You drink your coffee in complete peace, and you anchor your mind before the corporate machine begins to spin. You step out of your front door from a position of absolute strength, knowing your priority for the day, rather than rushing out in a blind panic. Step 2 is violently defending your focus. When it is time to do the complex, valuable work that actually grows your skills and your salary, you build a fortress around your desk. You close the extra browser tabs. You mute the chat notifications, and you accept the temporary discomfort of being unreachable. You stop the illusion of multitasking, and you start compounding your true value in 90-minute blocks of deep, unbroken concentration. Step 3 is the evening transition and the defense of your peace. When the workday is officially done, you leave the reactive anxiety at the office. You do not bring your irritable, distracted leftovers home to the people who matter most. You swap the glowing screens for quiet, low dopamine activities that physically lower your heart rate and genuinely repair your nervous system. You choose actual biological recovery over the passive digital numbing that keeps you permanently drained. Step 4 is the architecture of tomorrow. Before you go to sleep, you do a massive 10-minute favor for your future self. You systematically eliminate the morning friction by laying out your clothes, packing your bag, and setting up the coffee maker. You write down the single most important task for the next day, giving your subconscious mind a clear, singular target. And then you fiercely protect your 8 hours of rest, recognizing it as the ultimate biological shield for your judgment and your emotional control. And there is something freeing about this philosophy that people often miss. Subtraction is not punishment. It is not about making your life smaller. It is about making your life quieter, clearer, and more intentional. When you remove the unnecessary meeting, the pointless scroll, the extra hour of digital agitation, and the obligation you accepted out of guilt, you do not become deprived. You become available again. Available for thought. Available for calm. Available for the kind of steady progress that changes a life without drama. Ultimately, taking control of your daily schedule is not about discovering some magical secret that gives you more hours than everyone else. It is about waking up to the stark reality that your time is your life. The modern economy is perfectly happy to let you run as fast as you can on a treadmill that leads absolutely nowhere. But speed means absolutely nothing if you are running in the wrong direction. You can spend the next 10 years of your career answering emails within 30 seconds, putting out minor fires, and trying to please every single person who asks for your time. If you do that, you will arrive at the exact same financial and emotional place you are standing today, only you will be a decade older and far more exhausted. Or you can make a fundamentally different choice tonight. You can stop drifting. You can take definitive, quiet ownership of the only capital you are absolutely guaranteed to run out of. You do not need anyone's permission to start protecting your focus. You do not need a massive promotion to start defending your peace at home. You just need to draw a hard line in the sand. Master your 24 hours, point yourself in a direction you actually want to travel, and let time do the heavy, beautiful lifting for the rest of your life. That's all. Thanks for watching.